Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turned out a poem 512, The Soul Has Bandaged Moments. Now, in many ways, we are back to poem 241. Do you guys remember this one? I like a look of agony because I know it's true. Men do not sham convulsion nor stimulate a throe. The eyes glaze once, and that is death. Impossible to feign the beads upon the forehead by homely anguish strung. Now, here we have another powerfully emotional poem. The suspicion of infidelity seems to stand, what one scholar suggests, behind this poem. I want to point out right away the way in which this poem, very psychological poem, moves from depression to some kind of almost like manic feeling back to depression again. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our preceding 511 poems. We just finished with 511 if you were coming. Now, one scholar has called this poem a tour de force of Gothic eroticism. Another scholar has called this a bitterly self-critical poem. Now, here's what we will say. Poet of all poets, as it relates to agony, as it relates to woe, the bandaged, if you will, moments of our life. And this is how she says it. The soul has bandaged moments when, too appalled to stir, she feels some ghastly fright come up and stop to look at her. Salute her with long fingers, caress her freezing hair, sip, goblin, from the very lips the lover hovered o'er, unworthy that a thought so mean accost a theme so fair. The soul has moments of escape, when bursting all the doors she dances like a bomb abroad and swings upon the hours, as do the bee, delicious born, long dungeoned from his rose, touch liberty, then know no more about noon in paradise. The soul's retaken moments, when felon led along with shackles on the plumed feet and staples in the song, the horror welcomes her again. These are not braid of tongue. Now, it is fascinating the number of words in this poem that Emily will use once and only one time in all of her poetry, braid being one of those. Let's go to work now with this poem, and let's figure out what it is that Emily is talking about, although the specifics are never articulated. For example, what is it that has created this need to be bandaged, for example? We don't know. We do know, though, that the soul as a phrase is used in 67 of Emily's poems, so we want to pay attention to that. Notice we'll go, first of all, the souls, right? Okay, the breakup of this poem. We'll first of all talk about that moment of, what do you want to call it? Depression, maybe? When we have a bandaged moment. In other words, some kind of wounding has taken place. We don't know why, but there's some need of a bandage. Now, of course, by the end of the poem, we move from bandaged moments to shackles, the cuffs on the wrists, if you will. We think of the bands that Jefferson would reference, for example, in his Declaration of Independence, right? The soul has bandaged moments. Now, when we get to poem 1323, she'll only use bandage two more times. 1323, she'll say it this way. I never hear that one is dead without the chance of life afresh annihilating me, that briefest belief, too mighty for the daily mind that, tilling its abyss, had madness had it once or twice, the yawning consciousness. Beliefs are bandaged. Like the tongue, we're going to get obviously to the tongue at the end of this poem, right? When terror, were it told, we'll get to the horror as opposed to the terror, in any tone commensurate, would strike us instant dead. I do not know the man so bold he dare in lonely place that awful stranger consciousness deliberately face. We're going to enjoy that poem. We'll come back to 512 when we hit 1323. How about 1737? This is the other time that she uses the word bandaged. Rearrange a wife's affection when they dislocate my brain, amputate my freckled bosom, make me bearded like a man. Blush my spirit in thy fastness, blush my unacknowledged clay. 7 years of troth have taught thee more than wifehood ever may. Love that never leaped its socket, trust entrenched in narrow pain, constancy through fire awarded, anguish bare of anodyne. Burden borne so far triumphant, none suspect me of the crown, for I wear the thorns till sunset, then my diadem put on. Big my secret, but it's bandaged. It will never get away till the day its weary keeper leads it through the grave to thee. So the only other times this bandage gets used in here, the soul has bandaged moments. We'll go to retaken moments in the third part of the poem. When, okay, what's going on? Too appalled to stir. Appalled gets used once and only once in all her poetry. It's now. She feels some, notice the soul is feminine. She feels some ghastly fright come up. Now you'll remember ghastly from 281. Do you remember this poem's, in our study of this poem in 281? And our, of course, assumptions are that you've been working with us, so you'll maybe remember her use of ghastly in 281. 'Tis so appalling it exhilarates, again from appall to appalling. So over horror, we'll get to horror, of course, in this poem of 512. It half captivates, the soul stares after it secure. A sepulchre, fears, frost no more, to scan a ghost. And of course we've got the mention of the phantom or the goblin in this poem too, is faint. But grappling conquers it, how easy torment now, suspense kept sawing so. The truth is bald and cold, but that will hold if any are not sure. We show them prayer, but we who know stop hoping now. Looking at death is dying. Just let go the breath and not the pillow at your cheek so slumbereth. Others can wrestle, yours is done, and so of woe, bleak dreaded come, it sets the fright at liberty and terrors free, gay, ghastly holiday. And of course the terror, the horror will be mentioned here. She feels some ghastly fright come up, to stop and to look at her, salute her, the phantom, the goblin, as she'll reference it, to salute her with long fingers, caress her freezing hair, sip goblin from the very lips. And of course goblin B was in 511 that we just studied. Sip goblin from the very lips the lover hovered o'er. So it's amazing. So the lover kisses the lips, but now the individual is soon maybe to die, or excruciating, appalling pain, moment of pain. And now the lips are about to be kissed by the goblin. From the very lips the lover hovered o'er, unworthy that a thought so mean accost a theme so fair. I mean, this is just brilliant Emily work here. The soul, now to the second one, has moments of escape. Now notice we go from depression to almost like a manic feeling of escape. Of course we'll come back to the shackles at the end of the poem. Almost like a newborn soul of a kind. When bursting all the doors, she dances like a bomb. Now when we get to 754, one of Emily's most famous poems, we'll enjoy this poem. We'll come back to this. My life had stood a loaded gun in corners till the day the owner passed, identified and carried me away. And now we roam in sovereign woods, and now we hunt the doe, and every time I speak for him the mountains straight reply, and do I smile such cordial light upon the valley glow. It is a Vesuvian face had led its pleasure through. And when at night, our good day done, I guard my master's head, 'tis better than the eider ducks, deep pillow to have shared, to foe of his, I'm deadly foe. None stir the second time, on whom I lay a yellow eye or an emphatic thumb. Though I than he may longer live, he longer must than I, for I have but the power to kill without the power to die. Well, again, one of Emily's most famous poems, dances like a bomb abroad and swings upon the hours. And now the simile, as do the bee, you would say as does the bee, right? Delirious born, delirious is back to 237. Long dungeoned from his rose. When we get to 1385, We'll play the game of Dungeoned again. It'll read like this for us. Secrets is a daily word, yet does not exist muffled. It remits surmise, murmured, it has ceased. Dungeoned in the human breast, doubtless secrets lie, but that great inviolate goes nor comes away. Nothing with a tongue or ear, secrets stapled there, and of course the stapling happening in this poem as well, will emerge but once and dumb to the sepulchre. Again, notice, as do the bee delirious born, lung dungeoned from his rose, touch liberty, and then notice the dash, then no more. This, again, is brilliant on the part of Emily. No, as in K-N-O-W, N-O, more, but noon in paradise. So notice, we can have moments of depression, we can have moments of adulation, incredible feelings. Then, we're back to the third. The soul's retaken moments. It's almost like we're thinking now again. When felon led along with shackles on the plumed feet. By the way, shackles only gets used once and only once in all our poetry. It's here. On the plumed feet takes us back to the poem 126, Plumed Procession. Plumed feet and staples in the song. Again, we just heard staples, and in 293 as well. In the song, and then we're to the horror. Notice capitalized. And when we hear this phrase, the horror, by the way, we're going to pay attention to Emily's use of horror. But when we get to 777, we're gonna enjoy again this idea of her use of the horror. The loneliness one dare not sound, and would as soon surmise, as in its grave go plumbing to ascertain the size. The loneliness whose worst alarm is least itself should see, and perish from before itself for just a scrutiny. The horror not to be surveyed, but skirted in the dark, with consciousness suspended and being under lock. I fear me this is loneliness, the maker of the soul, its caravans and its corridors, illuminator seal. I think it's very possible that it is this very loneliness that Emily's referencing here. The horror welcomes her again. These are not braid of tongue. By the way, the word the horror ends up in 10 of Emily's poems of tongue. And you'll remember from 510 that word picture about the bells put out their tongues. We've heard several mentions of the tongue here. What are we going to do with a poem like this at 2A? I think, as one scholar has said it, there is a, quote, constant fluctuation between joy and suspicion that never will end. In other words, bad things happen. And as Emily will often say, as her theodicy, why must there be bad things? No longer ask, why did this happen to me, but rather, why did this happen for me? This is a powerful, I think, recognition moment in this poem. At 2B, one scholar has pointed out that the verbs of this narrative are increasingly assaultive. I'll let you go back and study it on your own. At 3A, one scholar has pointed out Seamus Heaney's feeling into words with the binding secret, as he references it there. I can't help but think of Conrad's Heart of Darkness, and of course that final utterance by Kurtz, the horror, the horror. We've given lectures at learnstrong.net. Finally, at 3B, what was a time, a moment, when you felt bandaged? And how did you move beyond that to something positive? Thank you.